Chickens blowing kisses. Never thought I'd end up 28 without a missus. Yet here we are, yeah, it's totally a thing. Making this movie about my life in quarantine. Started out hype, living life as a pirate. Then it got eclectic as time began to riot. Filmed my thoughts, what a terrible idea. Had a party over Zoom and got diarrhea. Ran out of toilet paper, life felt like forfeit. Turn on the news, an invasion of hornets. That's when it really truly started to unravel. I truly wish I could go motherfracking travel like toilet paper Jesus. Toilet paper Jesus. Toilet paper Jesus. Toilet paper Jesus. I wanna be a vagabond, maybe on a Cylon. I should have killed them hornets with the motherfracking mask on. Covered in ketchup, man, I think I messed up. Need a therapist that will help me fill my loving cup. No, not with beer, they really need to steer this conversation with myself a light year away from beer that need to poop and seize us. Sorry socks, it don't please us. Holy fracking crap, is that toilet paper Jesus? Toilet paper Jesus. 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 Toilet paper Jesus.
See the video's logo right here? Well, instead of that, you...
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 15th episode of Lights, Thunder, Action. I'm Thomas Carter Rochester, a.k.a. the son of Dale.
And I'm David Thompson, a.k.a. Marty. You're not thinking fourth dimensionally. You like that one?
I like that one. That was a good one.
Yes. And welcome to Lights, Thunder, Action. And guys, we got a packed show tonight. New time. Thanks for you for joining us. Thank you for being flexible with us. As always, you know, we go live over the weekend at some point weekly, and we're glad that you guys come in, tune in, enjoy us babble on for a couple hours, and we thank you so much. But tonight, we've got a big show. We're going to announce our new winner of the Tournament of Trilogies. Tonight is our last night of Back to the Future. We're doing Back to the Future Part 3. So this will be our last night of Back to the Future. Next week, we will start our new mini movie. The winner, who you guys voted for, will be announced later. Also, for What the News, everyone's favorite topic, of course, everyone's favorite segment. We have Batwoman recasting for the CW show and the new Boys trailer. So we'll be talking about those two and a bit more. And then, of course, we'll be ending it. Our last chunk will be Back to the Future Part 3, rounding out the trilogy, our first Trilogy of Trilogies. Thank you so much for joining us today. And Thomas, how you doing, man?
I am good. I'm tired. It has been a long day.
Yeah,
how are you doing, man? You've made a move recently.
Yeah, I'm here in Gainesville, Florida. You know, normally I'm in Melbourne. Check the new space. This is the temporary room. You'll see me here for about a month, so get used to it, everyone. But yeah, I'm here working. My feet hurt right now, but hey, I'm super glad to be here. I'm excited to talk movies with you.
Love it, man. Love it. How was your week? Busy, I assume.
Very busy. You know, moving, starting work. Kind of jumped right into it because I wanted to. And yeah, watch Back to the Future Part 3. So I'm a happy man because Back to the Future is like my favorite trilogy. Spoiler alert. So yeah, doing well. How about you? Doing fine?
I'm alive, bro. I'm alive. You know, just
right.
It's just I'm just tired all the time, perpetually. Yeah, I have so many things going on that I'm at a point where I'm like, you know, I could probably get sucked into 40 straight days of working if I'm not careful. I'm trying to avoid that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Not the best.
yeah, but maybe I'll have tomorrow off. Actually, I won't. More to come later.
All right.
So
Well,
let's
before we get on
to
move on, if you guys cannot catch this full live edition of the podcast, the video podcast that comes live on Facebook and on YouTube, you can always check out this podcast on our about 48 hours later we post it, at least 48, probably before then. Our audio version of this podcast, which goes live on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast, and our hosting website, Spreaker. So if you guys can't check out the whole show today, you guys can, drive or take a run, jog, whatever you want to do when you listen to your podcast. It'll be available there within the next 48 hours. So please check us out there. Thank you.
Yes, and you can also catch us live and almost in person right here on our Lights Thunder Action Facebook page every week that we go live for our show, as well as the HWWS WebTV. We have right beneath me right there our social media links on where you can find Lights Thunder Action across the interwebs. And I just wanted to give a special thank you to the HWWS media team for the constant support across the entire network and on all social media.
Yes, thank you.
We're able to keep going because of the love that they've shown us and all the love that you, our fans, have shown us. We have some exciting news coming in the next couple weeks between the tournaments and Comic-Con is right around the corner. Exciting. But we may be getting some guests in the next few weeks. That's been on our docket for a while now, and it's time to pull some triggers. That's right. You can call me Clint Eastwood. And we might even have a watch along, which is kind of my favorite thing to do right now.
Yeah, no doubt.
Now, moving on, ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner of the trilogy. Excuse me, wrong name. I terrible marketing. We have our first winner in the tournament. That's not right. Tournament of Trilogies.
Yes.
And David, could you please give us a wonderful drum roll, please? The winner, chosen by you, our fans, is the Dark Knight Trilogy.
What was that?
Oh my God!
Fans, if you can catch what that audience reaction was from, I will give you a big wink and a smile. David, do you have any idea?
I saw it on the screen. I cheated. I know what it was.
Why you gotta cheat like that?
I just looked. I didn't think. And I was like, oh, I know. Now I understand. But yes, The Dark Knight is our next trilogy. Thank you all so much for voting. There was a lot of votes casted, more than we expected. All of a sudden, there was a lot of voting. And
I forgot to mention that. I meant to mention the score, if it will. The Dark Knight beat out Jurassic Park in this week's. I had the wrong thing lifted. The Dark Knight beat the Jurassic Park trilogy 62-45. It was very close for a while, and at the last minute, the Dark Knight leapt ahead.
Yep. It was close. I was thinking that Jurassic Park was going to win for a moment. It was by no means a blowout. The Dark Knight kind of crept back at the end, or just kind of pulled away at the end.
The Dark Knight returned.
It rose, some would say. But yeah, Dark Knight trilogy. I'm super excited. I think genuinely, I've never seen the full Jurassic Park trilogy, so maybe we'll get to that someday, and that'll be exciting. But I know I love the Dark Knight trilogy. And so I'm super excited. We're starting off Back to the Future, one of my favorites, of course. Dark Knight trilogy, one of my favorites. So super excited. Next week, Batman Begins. Get ready for it.
Yes, Batman will begin our second trilogy of trilogies. So important moment to speak. Oh, that just did not work out the way I wanted it to in any way, shape, or form. Let's see how that looks on Facebook when it pops up on Facebook. It didn't even pop up on Facebook. Oh, comments. Unfortunate. So I was going to post the link to the new video, but technical difficulties, new poll. This new Tournament of Trilogies, we will call it Tournament of Trilogies Part 2, will host a number 2 versus number 3 seed live right now, going all the way until next Saturday around noontime. Toy Story versus Indiana Jones. You can vote now.
And only Toy Story 1, 2, and 3, not to be completely obvious, but we will not include Toy Story 4. So it's the Toy Story trilogy.
Trilogy. The only time we may bend some rules is when it comes to everyone. Thank you. Everyone's fair. I'm trying to copy and paste, and I don't know what's happening.
No worries. Yes, and then also we have Jurassic Park, our 1 seed who just fell so close to getting to being the winner this time, taking on the OG Star Wars trilogy, of course.
Wow.
New Hope. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking.
Empire Strikes Back.
It's been a long day, everyone. It's been a long day.
If you can't remember the wars, man, it must be a very long day. Return of the Jedi.
Empire's the best. I don't know how I could forget it. But anyway, so go cast your votes. Obviously, this week we're just starting off with Toy Story v. Indiana Jones. So please cast your votes for that. And then the following week, you guys get the picture by now. So on and so forth. Once we finish Dark Knight trilogy, we'll move on to one of these, whichever you guys vote. Thank you all again for voting. It's been really fun. I hope you guys have been enjoying it. So thank you once again.
I did it. I got it. I did the thing. It's in the comments now.
All right. Yeah. Everyone clap it up for Thomas.
Gosh. So the link that was just added to the comments there on Facebook, I'm going to have to go back on YouTube and add that in later on post show. You'll be able to take that link to our Facebook page and vote there. You can also vote on our Twitter account. I think we'll make the poll later on. We have a much smaller following there. But it contributed
Go follow us there. Go follow us on Twitter.
Yes. Oh my God, David, you should have told me that we had our faces obscured the whole time. Yes, below us we have Lights Thunder Action Podcasting on Twitter, and that is where our poll will go for Twitter. Technically, that would give you a chance to vote twice.
Yes.
Screw it.
Yeah, we'll discuss it later.
Yeah, we'll figure out that loophole later on. As always, before we move on, please leave us your thoughts and questions in the comments. Shout out Mom. Mom's here. Hi, Mom. Christian Basil's watching. Ryan Permison. And the spoiler alert. This is my promotion for the week.
Oh, all right.
It's exciting.
Geez, all right.
David, excuse me. Ryan is apparently Batman. Ryan is Batman. I think my mom voted for Toy Story. Mom, you got to go to the poll. I love you. Indiana Jones and Star Wars in the finals. Honestly, that's what I'm thinking is going to happen. Like 100%.
Yeah, Jurassic Park going against now OG Star Wars is pretty unfair for them.
It is steep.
They'll be back. But, cast your vote. We don't know. Maybe you guys love Jurassic Park. I mean, it almost beat the Dark Knight trilogy. So, please go vote and we'll find out. But yeah, that's a good prediction, Ryan. I don't know. Maybe Toy Story. Maybe. I don't know. I think Toy Story is a great trilogy. So
it's a great trilogy, but it is already not holding up.
What?
It is currently 10. We have 13 votes cast as of right now since 4:00 this afternoon.
Yep.
Indiana Jones has 10 of those votes.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, it is. I was like, oh, this will be an even match. Not even close.
We'll see. I mean,
I am secretly pulling for Indiana Jones all the way because I love that trilogy. Like, when it comes to old trilogies that aren't like in my normal zeitgeist of superheroes and laser swords, it's Indiana Jones. I don't know what it, and Back to the Future. And I think I know why. I like what I told you in the comments or in text while watching it earlier. I think I know why. I think I have an understanding of why now. And it is because it's Indiana Jones like and certain themes that come across.
Okay.
In the comments, my mom asked, "Can I proxy vote for your nephews?" No, they have to have their own Facebook page and vote And because I know that they're not allowed to have Facebook, they can't.
They get
vote.
no vote.
They get no vote. They don't even watch this show. They don't get to vote.
Right.
They don't pay taxes. All right. Well, that brings us to everyone's favorite section of the day, right? Doesn't it?
Correct. Yes, it
have
does.
we got there? Double
Yeah.
check the show notes. Part 2. Yes. Everyone's favorite segment is What the News? And I have the poverty story, like right off the bat. It's only a poverty version of What the News because I'm not professional like David. I'm a semi-amateur journalist.
Semi-amateur.
Semi-amateur. I noticed this right before we hopped on, and it is still open on my phone because I haven't had the chance to read it. Saturday, July 25th, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, The Future Is Now panel will be live at the Comic-Con at Home event.
Yeah.
I guess is a good way to put it. It is Boom Studios announced that, and that is obviously the ones who make the comics. And you know, I know you don't care, David, but there's big news this week.
Not really.
Yeah, the Power Rangers are no longer using the Super Sentai footage. Hasbro ended their agreement with Toei Animation, who makes the Super Sentai in Japan. That's where they get all the morphed fighting footage from. So there's rumors that and Power Rangers got moved to this subsidy under Hasbro, which does animation. People are wondering if they're about to do animated series to couple with their live action movies, which are going to have potentially the same continuity, potentially not.
Yeah.
So all of that is exciting. Let me finish scrolling this. Yep, that's it. I'm not going to read the article. I'm a slow reader. David, it's your thing.
All right.
You have
What the news, guys? This
What the
week we have some big news. Like I teased earlier, Batwoman, the CW show, has been recasted. I'm gonna butcher your name. I'm so sorry. Help me out in the comments, everyone. The new Batwoman. Her name is Javicia Leslie. Leslie's easy. It's the first name that I'm not sure about. Everyone help me out in the comments. But yes, we have our new Batwoman in the CW verse. Do you even call it Arrowverse anymore? Because an Arrow like gone.
No, it's the Arrowverse, bro.
It's always the Arrowverse. Okay, so
listen, Iron Man might be dead, but everyone's gonna remember Iron Man started that universe.
that's a fact. Yeah, but it's not called the Iron Man verse. But you know,
well, no, because they had a plan starting out that it's the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They just made Arrow, and then they're like, "This is wildly successful. Make more of these," and so they made a whole universe.
Yep. Well, in the Arrowverse, we have our new Batwoman after Ruby Rose exited the role late after the end of season 1.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Leslie coming in. I think you're excited about this. I know they're not starting until next year. These CW shows again, they're not getting restarted because of COVID and everything going on, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I do want to point out that's very important to this news before I get to your thoughts, Thomas, because obviously you have much more weight in your thoughts on this. Because I watched Crisis, but I didn't watch any of Batwoman at all. That Leslie will play a new character in the title role to succeed Rose's Kate Kane. So she's not being recasted as in the same role. She's just a new character that's taking on the mantle, I think is a good way of putting it. So Thomas, you heard this, you watched these shows. What were your thoughts?
I'm all in.
Yeah.
that's basically my thoughts. Like, I am super freaking excited. I really loved this season of Batwoman. I'm actually not finished with it.
Okay.
I have 2 or 3 episodes left. Once the COVID break happened, I just fell behind on all of them. The only one I finished so far is Supergirl, and that was arduous because I don't have time to sit down for 40 minutes, and then they end on cliffhangers, and then I'm like, well, do I stay up all night or do I go to bed?
Yeah.
Tough choice. I go to bed. So once they announced that who it was, and I was like, okay, I have no idea who that was, who that is, and then I read more about her. Obviously, they posted the picture, and I was like, well, I'm here for everything they're doing, because they promised to. The showrunner made promises about keeping it LGBTQ for an actor, as well as representing the community. And originally they were gonna kill off Kate Kane, or recast Kate Kane, and they decided to not. They definitely decided not to recast, and instead she might still be killed off. We really don't know. That's going to be the kind of the point of contention going forward. Really, this is I'm excited because they get a chance to do something that no other show in this universe has done, which is get 2 origin stories.
Right. Yeah.
The only show that is even close to doing that is Legends of Tomorrow. Legends of Tomorrow had an origin story in the main Arrowverse shows. They had the crossover, which led to the start of the Legends of Tomorrow. And then the first season was passable.
Yeah.
It was good. I loved it at the first, and then we got to the final episode, and I was like, that just seems so easy. I'm confused. And then the second season, they started figuring out a little bit more about how they were going to run. And that was kind of like a second origin, but not really. It was more of a continuation of the origin. This is just 2 straight characters finding their ground as Batwoman, and she's going to have to step into, I'm talking in the show, of course, she's going to have to step into a role that is very much needed. And everyone is beloved. Kate Kane is a beloved person in that universe as before and after becoming Batwoman.
Casual bottle open.
Smooth. What can I say?
What do you know? We're doing a late night show.
Need I drank my coconut water. I drank my throat comfort tea to help the vocal cords. Now it's beer time.
Yeah. Nice. Love to see it. All right. So, moving on to our next bit. Or was that it for Batwoman?
I probably was going somewhere, but very excited. I don't think I was going anywhere. I was just rambling late night. Very excited, super stoked to see what they do. Very intrigued to see how they're going to play with this character, and what is going to. I'm excited to see what's going to drive her. I'm assuming it's her dark past, which will be very interesting to see if she can do something like that.
Yeah, it almost makes me more interested in watching it, honestly. It's a really weird story how this I forget the woman who the name of the actress who dropped out. What was it?
Ruby Rose.
Ruby Rose, yeah. Like that was, after one season you don't hardly see that. You almost you wonder how she got out of her contract. But yeah, it's super, definitely interesting. Obviously I'm not a big CW person anymore. I used to be really into the Flash and Arrow, but Batwoman being in Gotham, just the whole Bat gang is super interesting to me. So maybe I'll check it out. I remember seeing but honestly, what I think is exciting is that when I watched Crisis, I don't know if it's a hot take, I wasn't that into the Batwoman character, and it might've been the actress. It might've just been the character, but like, I wasn't, I also had no background where I did have some for like everyone else.
Yeah. That's why.
Yeah, that might've been it. And
because she was in last year's crossover Elseworlds. And she was great in that. Everyone loved her there. And then they went into the season, and it actually went full back before Elseworlds. And so it shows how she became Batwoman. It's not very clear where Elseworlds falls into that story. If it even does, honestly. We don't want to talk about time here, okay?
Yeah, okay.
But she gets pulled in, like, the episode before was like her Alice. Oh boy, I'm trying to remember exactly how. In the episode before, Alice framed her Kate Kane's father for a crime. And then it was like, oh, here we are at the crossover.
Yeah. And
so she is like, hates everyone, trusts no one. And she literally wants to just fight everybody because she's very upset. Yeah. And I don't blame her. So
I love this comment by Kevin. I think Sally there.
That
was a good one. Okay, let's move on to our next Bat-related topic of what the news. So Matt Reeves' Batman universe. It has now been confirmed that, well, pretty much confirmed. And we've talked about it already on this show, how we've kind of almost like Joker in a way for everyone listening. Like that Matt Reeves' Batman, the Batman that's coming out, starring Robert Pattinson, next October, it should be, hopefully. It will not be in the DCEU. So, it won't be in the same universe as, and, for right now, we can always have that little caveat, and you've heard this talked about on the show a lot, how, we think that the multiverse can get broken open in that universe very easily, especially with the Flashpoint show coming, or movie coming, and with the news of Michael Keaton coming back as Batman. We think there's a lot of things that could happen. But for right now, expecting the Batman to be in any kind of shared universe, you shouldn't. It's going to be its own universe. It'll feel, in a way, it's a stupid comparison, I think, but in a way similar to Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, where you figure he'll be more grounded. He'll be in his own universe. I'm sure the movie will feel completely different. I'm just saying from a setting point of view that it might be a little similar. I think it's supposed to take place in the 80s or 90s or something like that.
Nobody knows when it takes place.
No one knows. It might even be present day. I'm not sure. People just speculated.
They might not even tell us a year just to keep it timeless.
Yeah. Okay. I like that idea. And I like the idea of it being by itself. Joker worked really well by itself. I think the DCEU right now has, with Ben Affleck being out now, it kind of makes it awkward that all of a sudden, putting
Affleck.
Yeah, just putting him in the DCU doesn't really make any sense. So I think when everyone saw this news, everyone sort of knew what was going on. I think what a lot of people are confused about is people don't really realize that Joker will also probably be in an alternate universe, from Joker the movie. So anyway, I enjoy this news. I think someday it may cross over, but I enjoy Batman just being Batman, and this is one step closer to that reality. So what were your thoughts, Thomas?
Well, do you have the second story about the Matt Reeves Batman universe? Did you miss it? I do not. Oh, okay. It. Well, you just used covered the part that you covered the story I didn't know about.
Okay.
So the reason that, the link that I followed from our show notes that you put in there was very interesting, but that actually came out after this, and it is the Batman spinoff series is set for HBO Max from Matt Reeves and Terrence Winter.
Oh, I did not catch that news.
Yes. Nope. So let me see, find it. The spinoff, which is currently untitled, hails from the Batman director Matt Reeves, Boardwalk Empire creator Terrence Winter, and the Batman producer Dylan Clark, and Warner Brothers Television.
Wait, what the news?
What the news? Yes, just where are we at? Come on, it should be.
So basically, they're making their own universe now.
Yes, the show, the series will be set in the same world Reeves is creating for the Batman feature film, and will expand on the movie's look at corruption in Gotham City. The show will mark Reeves' first television project under his recently announced overall deal with Warner Brothers Television Group. And it's important. This isn't actually. This is not giving me the full quote that I need. There it is. It is going to be a Gotham City Police Department. It's going to be set in the Gotham City Police Department.
Okay.
And cool. Then, that I missed it. It was at the very top of the page. Reading's hard, kids. So it's going to be set.
9-9.
Gotham 8-9.
Oh,
you like that? So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do, because not only are they making this, his own movie universe, but now it's a literal Batman universe, and I would not be opposed in any way if it started crossing over with other. If Matt Reeves' Batman universe turns into Matt Reeves' DC universe.
I see.
That's probably the simplest way to put it.
I would say one thing, speaking on that, I think it's a cool idea having them, have a kind of a parallel universe or whatever you want to call it, where it's its own kind of collective thing, but they are expanding on it, but it's not the DCEU. I think it's kind of a missed opportunity in my head that, Joker was a solo movie, and there is reports now that they might be coming out with a second because of the box office success the first one was. Yeah, exactly, money. And it made more than anyone would have thought. I mean, the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time was Joker, which is unbelievable. I mean, really unbelievable, because people, I mean, I've heard a lot of people, you yourself, you only saw it once in theaters. I mean, it wasn't like this crazy big, it was a big blockbuster, but it's funny because all the reactions, you never know. Like, I really enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it. Others didn't at all. Others hated it. Others didn't know what to make of it. Others just thought that was uncomfy for an hour and a half in the theater. And but it made so much money. But what I'm getting to is that I think it's kind of a missed opportunity, them not setting that Joker up to be in this Matt Reeves universe. Because I think they had no foresight with it, because they, you know, they were set out to make that Joker film for what it was and make it what it is. And I think they were, I mean, I really, really enjoyed it. So I think they were very successful in that. And they weren't trying. And I think kudos to them, because I think they've been trying to do this lately with the DCEU and it's been failing them, at least before like Harley Quinn. But, you know, like when they were trying to build the universe too much, and I think with the Joker, they almost went the complete opposite way, where they were just like, they didn't leave room for any kind of like they have to retcon things, like even like Alfred or like Bruce and just everything that happened. I mean, we saw like the origin, you know, at the end of basically like Bruce Wayne and Batman and stuff. So it's just, I wish we could get that Joker in a Matt Reeves Batman movie one day, maybe. I'm not sure that it'll be a thing. I highly doubt it. And I even heard rumors. What's that?
As in Joaquin Phoenix as Joker?
As in Joaquin Phoenix as Joker. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Good luck with that, pal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, exactly. Good luck with that is right. And I've even heard rumors, like, you know, not big enough to make what the news, but I've heard rumors saying that they are looking to cast a Joker in, you know, the Batman, or like in a the Batman 2 or something of the likes. So yeah,
I've read the same
but exciting.
thing.
Like I said, yeah. I mean, I'm excited about this. I'm excited for the Batman first and foremost. You know, first we gotta hope that's good before we get, you know, Gotham 99. But exciting news nonetheless. So yeah. Moving on to our final what the news topic of today, before we move on to our Trilogy of Trilogies, Back to the Future Part 3, finishing all that up. Our final news topic is the official trailer for The Boys Season 2. If you guys don't know, The Boys is a Amazon Prime video.
Show it?
Nah, let's not show it.
It's a little bit.
We'll assume you guys watched it, all right?
Yeah,
you know,
it breaks our FCC rules.
Yeah, for our airwaves, just go check it out in your own time. Because like you know, it is definitely like a MA R-rated like show. Where I liked the first season of The Boys personally. I thought it was pretty good and like really interesting take on superheroes in general. Just like it made it feel more realistic than kind of being corrupt. But anyway. The second season's trailer, Thomas, what were your overall thoughts after watching it?
That's exactly what my thoughts were.
All right.
I thought about rewatching it while you were talking, and I was like, no, because then people will just look at me like losing my mind. This trailer is packed.
Yeah, it is.
Like, it is quite literally stuffed with gore and blood.
Yeah.
And I have gone back multiple times and like freeze frame to try and figure out who is dying in certain scenes.
Yeah.
Because they look super pivotal. Let me give you just an example. A military man is flipping the bird to Homelander, and he just eye lasers him to death.
Yeah.
Right there out in public in front of God and everybody. So
I have to say,
and the thing that I enjoy, I don't even think it's in this trailer. I think it was in the sneak peek of the first 3 minutes of the season. Giancarlo, oh my God, I just forgot his name in the middle of trying to say his name.
Oh, it's all right. What I was gonna say really quick while you look that up, just in general with The Boys, I'm excited for the next season. Hopefully, it'll be as good as the first. But the idea of Homelander, just his character in general, him being this like Superman, you know, powered villain, basically, that that's shown to the public as a hero, but he turns out he's a villain. And I just think that part's so clever. Like the whole show is for some degree. And just on the trailer, I definitely I might try to rewatch the first season before the second one comes out in September. Who knows if that actually happens, but I might try to, just because I kind of want to refresh on what happens. But it did, watching this trailer reminded me of like the tone and the feel and the story of the first season with the boys, with Butcher and everyone, going out to fight these guys and trying to hunt them down. And now it seems like to some degree the roles kind of reversed. And this show is definitely unique. I don't know if it's really for everyone, just because I feel like you have to be you have to be able to watch a certain amount of gore and things like that. I mean, even just the first episode of season 1, it hits you like that.
I literally stopped. I was trying to watch it later, and I was like, I'll give this a shot. Spoiler alert, because it's like the first 2 minutes of the damn episode.
Yep.
A superhero sprints through a person and they literally explode in blood. And it goes everywhere.
And that's how it starts.
That's how it starts. I turned it off and went, this is not for sleepy Thomas.
No doubt. Yeah. But season 2 looks great. I mean, I think they're almost not showing us. They've showed us this gave us a good look into kind of maybe a little bit more of what the season 1 or season 2 will be about. They
really just told us that for our characters, they're on the run. That's basically all you need to know for the boys themselves, who are technically the main characters.
Yeah.
But I've got this weird sneaky suspicion that the Deep is gonna turn face and become less of a dick.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know why I feel that way, but I feel like after murdering his dolphin friend. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Crap. Oh my God.
Yeah.
What a major spoiler. I'm so sorry.
Out of context, that means absolutely nothing to anyone. They'll forget.
You are so right.
But anyway.
I'm very excited. You're excited. The dog's excited.
Yes. We're all excited.
We're all excited. We didn't even put the right banner up.
Well, welcome to Let's Interaction, everyone.
Well, we were talking about the boys for a while there. It's Giancarlo Esposito, who is in Breaking Bad, also in The Mandalorian and a litany of other shows. He is the boss of all of the soups.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Gotcha. He's the D head going on there.
Okay.
So let me make sure where we're at. Boom. All right. So David, it's time for Back to the Future Part 3, bro.
It is. We have made it to our Trilogy of Trilogies segment. It is our last one in our first trilogy, Back to the Future Part 3. Next week, tune in for Batman Begins when we start our next trilogy. But today, we're going to talk about Batman. Whoops, getting ahead of myself. We're going to be talking
to come back from the future?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Ooh, I'm back. Okay. Back to the Future Part 3. Here we go. We're going to talk about the movie as per usual, and then at the end, we're going to kind of go over overall thoughts on the trilogy as a whole. We're going to rank the 3 in what we think is the, first to third in whatever order we want for what we think is the best movies in the trilogy. So we'll rank the trilogy. We'll discuss each movie kind of in an overall sense. And so that'll be the end of our trilogy, the Trilogy of Trilogies. Next week, Batman Begins. Here we go. Back to the Future Part 3. Release date, May 25th, 1990. Only about 8 months after Back to the Future Part 2, when I didn't have to wait, but they had to wait 4 years after Back to the Future 1 to get 2. And then just after 2, there was 8 months later that the third one came out. Talked about it before. They filmed back to back. As they were filming the third movie, they were editing the second. So these movies were filmed back to back, the second and the third one. You can kind of feel it a bit. But anyway, let's get right to it. I have a few fun facts, as I always start normally with each movie. And the first one is we see, so the scene at the beginning of this movie, and it was the end of last movie, and it's one of the climactic moments in the first movie we see in all 3 films, of course. So it's, when in Back to the Future Part 1, it's when Doc sends Marty back to 1985, back to the future. The clock tower gets struck by lightning. We see that scene in every single Back to the Future movie, which I think is so cool. It goes to show, I think, the heart of these movies, that, in my opinion, where they try to connect each one to the other. So like they do they make it such a point, they do it so purposefully, and sometimes it's a little over the kind of on the nose, but sometimes it's really good. And I think it shows, like, I think that's what makes it so special as a trilogy, like how much they're so connected, because it is this like time traveling, jumping around trilogy. That's why I think it makes such a great trilogy. Anyway, nonetheless, I was gonna say, kind of at the beginning there, when Doc was like, speaking of that, on that scene where he does send Marty back, and then Marty, that's been from Back to the Future Part 2, comes to him and it's like, I'm back from the future. Can you imagine like how being Doc right there, like him later in the film, like when, just after this scene later, when he's like, oh, like he doesn't believe Marty's back. That's like the most realistic thing of this entire trilogy, is his reaction. Because like it's literally like it makes perfect sense that he's like can't imagine that he's back, and it makes, I think it's so much more realistic than a lot of other things, especially as I think there's a big loophole in this film I'll get to later, that kind of bothers me to this day, of course. But something I didn't notice when I was a kid, but now I think it's really obvious in my mind. But anyway, so that's that.
Okay.
Another.
I want to dive into the loophole now.
Well, give it a second.
Making me wait for the future.
Yes, always have to wait, because you never know what the future holds, Thomas, as we learned at the end of this film. Anyway, the drive-in theater. We jump around. Sorry about that. The drive-in theater we see when they send Marty to the 1885 was specifically made for that scene, and that scene alone. It went up, they filmed, and they deconstructed it. There was never a movie shown at that outdoor, drive-in movie theater, which seems like a lot of production for just that. I think something that was really obvious, the part of Seamus McFly was was originally written for Crispin Glover, which I think comes to no one's surprise, because it doesn't really make sense that it's Michael J. Fox. You would think it would, like it's weird, and you would think that it would make more sense that Michael J. like Marty, his oldest relative looks just like him and is married to who looks just like his mom. It gets kind of weird.
It's some Philip J. Fry stuff from Futurama.
Yeah, it's for sure. And I think that Crispin Glover, obviously, we talked about it last week. We don't need to get in that again, but he obviously didn't return for the third film. It was originally Michael J. Fox's idea for 1885 being the year. He liked, Western movies, and I think he actually came up with the exact year for it. And the last, fun fact I have on here was that Clint Eastwood was actually asked for his permission about his name being used for Marty in the film. And he said he was apparently like very happy, like he was quote unquote tickled with the homage to like his name being in the film. So there was definitely no issues with that. He enjoyed that they used it in the film. So that was awesome. So yeah, what were your overall? I know you really enjoy this movie, Tom. So what are your overall thoughts on this film, just to start off?
I love it.
Yeah.
To put it simply. As I've said before, like growing up, for whatever reason, number 3 always stood out the most to me. And it was kind of always my favorite, and it still kind of is. I'm not going to like tip whether it is or it isn't until we get to the end and we rank everything.
Yep.
But I now know why, as a kid, it was my favorite. I see the reasons why, and as an adult, I can recognize that my child self might have been smart or stupid. You'll have to find out.
Yeah.
I love this movie, and my favorite thing of this movie when I was a kid and now are all the Easter eggs that continuously pop up.
Yeah.
And then in this one, I think now we're just deconstructing the film. In this one, I think they go about those Easter eggs in a much more natural way that is not forced or shoehorned.
Yeah.
Example, the manure falling in the manure. And then I hate manure. In the first,
kind of shoehorned, but I enjoyed it.
Well, it wasn't recreating an entire sequence from another movie.
Correct.
It was, which the only thing that made me enjoy that in part 2 was the fact where Biff was like, "This seems oddly familiar."
Yeah.
Like it's like, haha, okay. That made me feel a lot better about it as an adult. As a kid, I was like, "Oh, it's just like the first one." Stupid child. So I loved how they brought that manure sequence in. You're now building the clock tower instead of it being there already.
Yeah. That was awesome.
The ravine.
Yep.
Probably the biggest character of this whole damn film.
Yeah, really.
And
Ravine.
Or is it Kenosha Ravine?
Yeah.
Or is it Spoiler Ravine? Eastwood Ravine. We're gonna spoil it for
Ravine.
You. Yeah, it's the
for
Eastwood
this 1990
Ravine.
movie.
Yeah. Hey, look. It's been 30 years. You haven't seen it. That's on me.
Yeah.
But I love those things, and there's so many more. But
yeah,
the fact that it centers on Doc.
Yes,
and I think this movie centers on Doc more than Marty, and I think that's probably why, because I am obviously a nerd of science. Civil engineering is kind of lame, but astronomy and astrology and all of the other what's the word?
I don't know what you're talking about.
The sections of science. There's a word.
Okay.
All of the various subjects of science.
Help us out, chat. Help us out.
Help us learn words good. But I love that. And I think I always identified a little bit more with Doc than I did Marty. And I think that now I still identify with Doc more than I do Marty. And isn't that a little sad that as like 7 years old, I'm obviously the old crazy guy who invented a time machine. Not cool young Michael J. Fox who plays metal and fixes time and all that stuff. No, I'm the crazy old guy with wiry hair and a dog named Einstein. And also a dog named Copernicus. Yeah,
this is true. Just going down a few things, like you were just saying, some overall thoughts and some like points that you love about it. I love this movie too. We'll get into our rankings later, but I love this whole trilogy. So I'm like not the person to talk to you about any of these films. If you want to talk about like not being, even though I am critical of some things in here, and we'll get to it in a bit. But I think a few things just about the trilogy. It's the way they go seamlessly from one to the next. Like if you watch, like. If you didn't know, I know all the backstory about how, the first one wasn't supposed to be, it wasn't, it was meant to be a solo film, and then they decided to keep moving forward. But if you ignore that, like each one ends seamlessly. You could watch all three in a row and it'd just be one adventure. It's like talking about trilogies. It's one adventure. I'm going to talk more about that in the end. One thing I love about this movie is it's incredible, and it's a part of the first two too, but you really see it in this one. It's incredible how Zemeckis has made it so the 1985 Doc and the 1955 Doc are two completely different characters in my head.
Yes.
They're just different characters. It's brilliant filmmaking because your head literally thinks that you're going to see a different person, different actor in my head. And it's unbelievable how in these movies they only use a handful of actors. There's a lot of side characters, but for the main characters, it's a lot of reusing, and I think it's some of the brilliance. It's something that no movie franchise I've seen has like nailed as much as this one, like where they do kind of like tacky things, like using the same actor for different roles, and it feels natural and it's cool, and you care about the characters in different ways. Like you care about 1985 Doc differently than 1955 Doc. Anyway, also an important note we've discussed in the first two is I kept guessing when the letter was from. The letter is from September 1st, and he died September 7th, and that was what I got tripped up on. I said 7th, and that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, I was listening to it. I was actually getting dinner ready when it's like, he died on September 7th, and I was like, haha.
Yeah, exactly. One other thing, just before I kind of dive in a bit more, is Mad Dog rocks. He's the best. I love Mad Dog Tannen. I think he's like possibly the best villain of this whole trilogy.
Oh, okay. Yes. I concur. I was like, I hate him. What are you talking about?
Oh,
No.
of course. Yeah, no, that's why he's so
but
good.
I see what you're. Yes, he is definitely the best villain.
It's like Biff with no reservations because he's in the
Exactly.
Wild West.
It
and
is. It is literally a murdery, super murder version of Tannen.
Yeah, exactly.
And it makes it like he is literally. That's also probably another reason why I actually like he is not redeemable in any way, shape, or form. Mad Dog. And also, you don't recognize that it's Tom Wilson.
Honestly, like the
I
makeup
had to,
and the
between the
facial
makeup,
hair,
the facial hair, the accent,
outfit.
the wearing, never being clean. Ooh, excuse me, never being clean looking. He literally is I was like, is that him? And they got him on one shot, and I was like, that is him, dude.
He does a great job of playing different Biffs. Talking about reusing characters,
Oh,
I mean,
man.
he might do the best job of them all. Between all the different kinds of Biffs, Griff, and then Mad Dog Tannen, like completely different characters. They feel completely different. I mean, the Biff we see at the end of the film compared to Mad Dog, that's not the same person, you know?
That version of Tannen at the end of the film of 3 versus at the end of 1 and beginning of 2 is also a different.
Oh, you think so?
Oh, dude, just watch it again, because I noticed that in 3 he was like,
yeah.
Okay, Clone Wars, he's like 99. At the end, he's like, he just wants to help out, like, hey man, hey Marty, I'm just here to help you. But as at the end of episode of
he's like that at 1.
Number 1,
he comes in with the books and stuff. It's like, oh hey, George.
Yes, but it's different how it's played.
Okay.
Like, if you watch it, Biff, the characters that he's playing gets worse along the way. Biff is a shirty person. FCC regulation cursing there. He's not a good guy. And when he's in 55, you're like, wow, he's really not a good guy. I mean, like, looking back at it in the 80s, like, oh, he's forcing himself on a girl. Now it's like he's basically raping her. And it's like, no, dude. And then it's surprising because in 1885, it somehow got worse. And it's like, I really want this guy to actually die this time. And then, but when every time Biff loses, that weak version of Biff gets weaker in every movie.
Yeah.
So when it comes to in 3, when they got to that, and I think it is a contrast versus Mad Dog Tannen and Biff Tannen in this movie. But I also think that it was done on purpose because they went further back into the past and changed more, right?
Yeah.
So, Mad Dog Tannen was like an outlaw, but now he's arrested and potentially going to be hanged.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. And that's one thing too, where it's like, I just thought about this. They couldn't have killed Mad Dog because that would have messed up and that would have caused a big butterfly effect for later on. I mean, there's a lot of things that another point I wanted to make.
This kid could have already been born.
Okay. Well then,
it's not like he's a father figure.
Right. One thing about that was funny is, he's like, Doc's like back in 1955 at the beginning of the film, he's like, I know way too much about my future. And I'm like, yes, he knows way too much about his future, like an unbelievable amount, and an amount that, and actually, this is not my big loophole for the film, but one I noticed is that we kind of put together that in the end of the first film, he does gather up the torn up letter, put it back together, and reads it. And in this film, he passes out and goes back to his home. Marty takes him back. So do we in my head, I'm like, wait, how did he ever get the letter? Because he passed out, he went away. I mean, I'm sure you could talk around it, but it doesn't really make much sense because you assume at the end after he sent Marty back that he picked up the letter then and put it back together. But in this version, like how it actually happens is that he gets passed out because Marty comes back and then he wakes up in his house and the letter would have been down like a sewage pipe by then. So then it's like, wait, because that Doc still doesn't know what really happens in 1985, but it gets confusing. It's hard.
So that's your loophole.
That's one of them. I have a better one.
Okay, hold on. Give me 10 seconds to think about this. Did he throw it on the ground or did he put those pieces back in his pocket?
Throw it on the ground. He ripped it up and like tossed it on the ground. That's right. My other loophole is way better, by the way, too. This one you could talk around. You could be like, oh, he went back for it later or whatever, or he did maybe throw it in his pocket, or it's in his car or something. But anyway, so one thing I wanted to point out was Doc's sniper. Shout out to that gun. That was so cool. Like the gun he pulls out and shoots Marty down when he's being hanged. You know what I'm talking about? It has like the cool scope on it, and it's super retro. Like obviously it's super retro. He totally like kind of just put it together because no one really had snipers back then. It's really cool.
I might have been standing up and missed this visual. Marty's almost hanged.
Yeah.
I totally missed that.
Oh no, yeah, he gets hanged by he's being hanged by Biff or Mad Dog and his crew at the clock tower. And then Doc he sees Boots walk up and it's like, oh yeah, it's Doc, and then he like whips out this 1980 or 1885 version of a sniper that he's built, and he goes boom, like one shot hits the rope down. It's sweet. It's like Doc's most badass moment, I would say, in my opinion. One other thing, the Native Americans that are, riding their horses in a straight line don't care about this vehicle from 1985 that just appears in front of them and just keep going, and don't stop, don't run away from it. And I'm just like, I mean, it's just
they were running away. It was run or die.
Right.
We'll keep running this way. And I mean, technically, they cared. They put an arrow in it.
Yeah, that's a good point. They did try to fight it off a little bit. So I will say, shout out to the little refrigerator Doc's made in his 1885 thing. I thought that was really cool. Yeah, that was awesome. Anyway, so what I wanted to say that my big loophole is, let's get to that because we're kind of approaching it a little bit. And I thought about it earlier on in the film. I'm like, wait, Clara would, first off, I mean, there's a few things. How Clara's Doc's beloved, and they've only had met for a couple of days. Like, there's no way she would have been his beloved by the time he had died. I mean, maybe, but the thing is, here's the loophole. If Doc would have never, I mean, maybe he would have, we don't know. I guess you could just say he would have been there, but they were checking out the bridge that hasn't been built yet when her horse went crazy, and she would have eventually died in the not the alternate universe the first universe, I guess, the first 1885.
The original.
Yeah, but it
wasn't he supposed to go pick her up though?
Yes, but but maybe that's what I'm missing.
Because that was a big point. It's like, you got to go pick up this new doctor. Her name it's
Clara,
Miss Clayton, Clara, and he's like, well, this is obviously how I meet her. I can't do that.
Right. But I guess in my head, I'm like, he would have that would have. Okay, maybe just Doc being there would have saved her. Maybe that's a good point that I didn't think of, because in my head I was thinking that it didn't have anything to do with it, and Marty not going back to the future or back to the past. She would have just died anyway, and it would have been Clayton Ravine.
Exactly. So and she said that a snake spooked the horse, and it was hinted that she didn't know how to calm the horse. You'd have to assume that Doc would know how to calm the horse.
Yeah.
Super misogynist thoughts there, considering how it's written.
But, I mean, I was more thinking like that he's like a doctor and just knows a ton of stuff. So
yeah,
don't think about it that way.
But they're gonna. I do think about it. I ain't gonna lie about it.
I think you'll agree.
Misogynist a little bit.
Yeah, I think you'll agree with
the 1800s, and so that whole patriarchy bullcrap was wicked hard.
This is true, and I think you'll agree with me on this statement that the third movie is much more similar to the first than the second one, in the sense that it's more even just the story itself. So in the first movie, it's all about being in 1955 and having to get back to the future and having to getting away for the DeLorean to work. In the third movie, they're back in time trying to get back to the future, and they need a way to get the DeLorean to work. So it's kind of similar structure in that sense, where that's the main driving story, is getting the DeLorean to somehow work. When in the second movie, you can go it's working like magic. It's just boom, 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 boom. They're going everywhere. There's no worries about that. That makes that movie the most unique, because the third one I think takes more notes from the first and the way of its story structure. And I'll say it right now, you're gonna hard disagree with me on this.
Okay.
This is probably my biggest problem with the whole movie. You're gonna hate me for it. I am not a big Doc Clara guy. I'm just I like it. I love this trilogy, so I can't say I don't enjoy it, but it's not my favorite. Like I get it's Doc's movie. I appreciate it. Even almost the way that it's I don't know, like Mad Dog is more of a villain to Doc than he is to Marty. Marty just kind of adopts him being a villain to him. It's Doc's movie, which I like.
Marty always does, by the way.
This is true, and they dive more into the whole chicken thing. This I think that the him being called chicken definitely has a bigger payoff when you watch the third one than just seeing it in the second. After watching this movie, it's all right, that was a bit of a character development by the end of the third movie.
Yes, and it felt more natural in the third movie.
It felt way more natural in the third movie.
In the second one, they just threw it in there, and you're like,
yep.
What?
Exactly.
But in this one, you already know about it, and it comes up naturally and organically.
Yeah. So the thing is with Doc and Clara, I don't mind Clara. She's a cool character to introduce. Just Doc, this guy who is the scientist. When you think of a scientist, it is Doc Brown, just, married to science, really. And all of a sudden, he just falls head over heels for Clara in 1885. And it's a cool story. I still really enjoy it. I just, part of me is just not really, I don't love it as much as maybe you do or some others do, where I just don't think it's all that enticing. This movie is surely a lot less happens in this movie than in the second and the first, for that matter. I think the story in this one's good. I really enjoy the story. It's good to just sit down and watch, but it's a little more, this is a weird kind of way of putting it, but it's almost more casual than the first two. Where in the first two, there's stuff happening like this. But in the third one, we're in 1885 for a long time. There's slower character development. There's slower just story development. We're there for days, and we're seeing things over a course of time, and we're getting things in the same. Where I feel it's similar to the first one when they were back in 1955, but this one's even more kind of slow and not in a bad way. Just that's just the way they told the story, and I love how each movie is different in their own way while also being extremely connected. So what were you, I know you really enjoy the Doc Clara romance. So what are your thoughts and why do you like it so much? Because I don't know. I'm not really there.
I really like it because, he is, I will never I can't fall in love with a girl. I'm not the type for love at first sight. He's very against it. It doesn't make sense. It's not logical. And as soon as he says something, I think he says it's not logical. I'm like, I think even Marty says it. He goes, love's not logical. It just happens. And it's like, huh, you know what? You're right, Marty. You're actually right for once.
Yeah, he's it just hits you. You can't control it. And he said that's how it was him and Jennifer. Yeah. And
the thing that really got me with, okay, first off, I love the actress that plays Clara.
Yeah.
Yo,
I hate it, actually. It's the worst.
That was great, Ryan. For those of you just listening, Ryan said that David doesn't like romance.
LOL, JK.
LOL, JK. But when they save, and then Clara is just like, well, it must have been destiny for you to be there so I can meet you. It's and that's it right there. And that's what really gets Doc head over heels is she says, well, maybe it's destiny. And he goes, oh, destiny. Fate. Yeah. That is something that he had not thought of before.
Yeah.
He's controlling time. He can do this, but certain things are fated to be. And as we find out, she was supposed to go in that ravine historically. So saving her, and that's it also leads to Seamus showing up in, when Doc has one shot of whiskey and passes out.
Yeah.
Justify Seamus showing up. And they even hint at it earlier with Seamus about fate and destiny. Mm-hmm. Sometimes
he felt connected to Marty.
Exactly. And they said it at the very beginning, and he's like, I don't know, it feels like my future almost depends on me being here.
Yeah, this movie
okay, and it's one of those subtle, like they in a way they beat you over the head with it, but they beat you over the head with it with like a nerd's rope.
Yeah,
it's just like, ooh, piece of candy. And
this movie is a lot sappier than the first two, I would say.
It is, and that also might be why.
Yeah, like they talk about destiny more. The ending with Doc is awesome. It's beautiful. It speaks volumes, and it's a great way to end the trilogy. Not to just get ahead to that, but we're kind of going in whatever order.
So another reason that I ship Clara and Doc is they actually are compatible. Like how they are written. Like Doc is a very old school gentleman kind of guy, which is why he does not fit in very well with 1955. He's considered crazy in 1985. And more importantly than anything, he is so focused on his work and on science and this that he doesn't really take time to find a woman because he doesn't think that he's going to find one. And then when she mentions that she loves Jules Verne,
right,
he says, I have never met anyone, a woman who liked Jules Verne.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's interesting because that's like a big point in who he is, which we don't find out about until this episode.
Yeah.
Until this movie.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, so now they're even more destined and fated to be together. Based off that, one thing, that one's mention of Jules Verne and being a big fan.
Yeah.
And that's why I ship them hard. But
okay.
What's their ship name?
Clement?
No, I don't like that.
Clara. Okay, moving on.
Clara?
Yeah, I don't know. Chat, help us out. What's the Doc Clara ship name? One thing I hate about that is like one part of the movie that kills me, and it always annoys me. It's one of those things where it's just silly. It's part of the movie, and I just remember it drove me nuts as a kid because I like hate these moments when Doc confesses to Clara who he is. He tells the truth, and she loses her crap. And it's like, you're lying to me, blah 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 blah. And then she like goes and off and is gonna leave town. I'm like, what kind of an overreaction was that? You're in love with him. You're head over heels for him. And he tells you all this stuff. He's telling the truth, and he could prove it if he really just sat down and listened to him. He could have proved it. He could have proved it. Like he easily could have. And then she's like leaving town and stuff. I don't know. It sets up the final act very well. And a note I took just while watching the film, watching the final act, I said, Back to the Future has great third acts.
They do.
All three of them are fantastic. Like they kill anything. And that's what makes them so good to me. Like the third acts, they always land the plane. It's always exciting in different new ways. All three of them do it uniquely. Yes, I'm preaching. Thank you,
baby. Preach, because I agree. That's what makes this trilogy so good, and probably why I slept on it for so long, because I saw it at a very young age.
Yeah,
and I've been thinking about time travel ever since I watched this movie. I probably watched it about the same time as Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
So to me, it's just it is every finale. The third act is very important. The second act is important, but your Dark Night of the Soul, how you overcome that, and then the payoff from it. And these movies are just perfect.
Let's answer Ryan's question really quick. This is a trilogy that should never be touched, says Ryan. What say you? I agree. I agree. Yeah, we both are in agreement. I know there was a report that came up, like, it's come all over the years. There's games and stuff that I don't care about, and I don't, I think they're technically canon, but I don't play the games or whatever. But
just the movies in the game, though.
No. I was reading trivial like stuff where like they reference the game canon. I'm like, I don't care. But so I mean, check it out if you would want to.
I have it on Xbox.
There you go. Yeah, and I know like Tom Holland was asked because he's like, oh, he could be recast as Martin McFly. And even Tom Holland was like, no, I don't think it should ever be touched again. And I wholeheartedly agree. It's so good the way it is. There is a 0.0% chance they could recreate the magic of the first three and the only three in my mind. There's no way. It's the characters, the acting, the directing, like even the time it was made, I think makes it like it's something special to it.
it makes it. I mean, outside of the time travel aspect, it is a timeless flick.
Yeah,
because it was made in '85, but we have movies now that are period pieces, and
Right.
this feels like a modern movie in a period piece the
yeah,
entire time, and that is why it's so good. I'm not even gonna lie to you, bro. When it comes to any trilogy we might get, this is probably going to be overall the best trilogy.
Hey, preaching to the choir. Like I said at the beginning, we'll get to that in a second once we get to like our final thoughts and kind of rank a bit. But I agree.
I just meant as I've looked at all of our trilogy lists, and the only one that even comes close to me, and it's not even Star Wars, is Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Back to the Future, Indiana Jones is the only one that I think comes close. Just thinking about it right now, because there's certain things in the Star Wars OG trilogy that I'm not actually a very big fan of, and on top of that, I'm so close to the Star Wars trilogy. It's more of like my own personal mythology than it is a movie and stuff. So it makes it a little hard.
Yeah, and I'd say with like the Star Wars trilogy, the original, is that it stands alone, but it also kind of doesn't, just because the way Star Wars has progressed. And I think that kind of takes points off from it, just because, we enjoy all the Star Wars films, I'd say overall, and all the Star Wars, canon and like the cartoons and everything. But anyway, back to let's kind of get through some of my other points and just on the movie, like some specific things, is that the saloon, what the heck was that? Doc's in that saloon. It's like late at night. It's like midnight or whatever. He walks in there, gets his shot glass of whiskey, and now we cut back later to Marty waking up. We see Mad Dog waking up his guys, punching him in the gut or kicking him in the gut, and they're still in the saloon. Bunch of people in there drinking. The bartender's there. Doc's still sitting there holding the thing, and it's like 8 a.m. What just happened? Like, I'm sitting here I was sitting there watching it again. It's like, so what? They've been open all night. They've all been in there all night. It's a little nitpick. You don't have to like comment on it. It's just like a silly little thing where I'm like, they just kind of think we're not going to think about it. I feel like, because they're all sitting there. It's 8 a.m. They're drinking. People are just in the saloon. The saloon is open. Exactly. It really is. But a lot more people are in it, I guess, all night than here. Because it's like, what? Did people show up for their breakfast whiskey? Like, what's going on?
Okay, first off, David, you were born like 120 years after this movie.
This is true.
So after this time frame, so they might have honestly been open all night back then for the saloons.
Yeah,
I mean, I know in like the 70s here they were open until 5-6 a.m. So who's to say that they weren't open a little longer back then? And you got to also remember they were escort houses as well.
This is true. So maybe they were. Yeah, you never know.
I've seen a lot of westerns. I've seen a lot of westerns.
Yeah. Awesome reference to the bulletproof vest, of course, that we saw from the second film when Biff is in the hot tub watching it. Yeah, he's in the hot tub in the biffed up 1985, as we would call it. And we see Clint Eastwood himself use the bulletproof vest, and it comes back in this movie with Marty. Anyway, that was awesome. I'm trying to think what else I had here. I thought it was funny how they never thought about, like, Doc thinks about all these little like intricacies, and they never considered if when Marty does go back to the future, back to 1985, that there could have been a train coming a little quicker than the one that actually came, and he could have just like died immediately. Like that's
that is very true, but potentially maybe he knew the train schedule already.
Maybe. One thing is that this is the first time we've been back to 1985 since we were in Biffed Up 1985, right. Which is like it's a good point, because we forget about those stakes, but it was a huge part of, because it's weird how the story works, because we don't get the relief of we don't get the initial. How am I trying to say this? We don't go back to 1985 after fixing 1985. We go back to 1885. So we kind of forget, but him going back to 1985 is almost double as like, I don't know, like
it's
rewarding.
It's double as sweet. It's more rewarding, and I think that's why they held off.
Yeah,
because they knew. I mean, they wrote these two movies. Like, if you ignore the first movie, these two movies are one movie. It's Infinity War and Endgame of this trilogy.
Think all three go really well together. I mean,
oh no, they do. But what I'm saying is, in terms of a specific story, 2 and 3, you can tell that 2 and 3 were done, made together.
Yeah.
Number 2 rehashes some of the first in terms of specific scenes, but it sets up decent stuff for the second or for the third. And then the third is really an original, is more of a reimagining of the first with a new time setting and really changing it up and taking you so far back into the past that you really do have a lot more stakes at play here. And you know that, like the first one, Doc's going to die, but then it changes that Marty's going to die. And then it's up in the air where they don't know who's going to die, if anyone dies. And it's a really good way about how they paid that off.
I agree. And I was just gonna say the ending of the film. It's like, okay, well, let's step back a second. What is Doc and Clara's lives right now? Like, they're flying around. He's somehow
the time traveler and his wife.
Yes, yes, the time traveling family. It's like
Jules and Vern.
Jules and Vern, those kids. You wonder what parents signed those kids up to stand in those scenes. Anyway,
Vern looked like he was 80 years old in his face, but he was obviously very just 8.
I've seen memes of like Vern. It's like a thing.
Oh my god, are you serious?
yeah. It's like a Back to the Future like Reddit thing.
Send them to me.
All right, I'll have to go find them again. But yeah. Anyway, it's like Doc, and then he I'm nitpicking because I love the nitpick.
You're nitpicking. You're just picking all the nits out today, pal.
I love to though, and this one is the easiest to like nitpick. I feel like because then there's like because they try to wrap it up so smoothly, and they get into more of the Destiny stuff. So I think they almost like reel back on like keeping it very like straight and organized. And Doc shows up in the train like probably 30-45 minutes after Marty went back because Marty went to get Jennifer. Didn't race needles, didn't get in the crash. Also, speaking on the crash, Jennifer would have died in that crash because she was the one in the passenger seat. And it's like, what? Why didn't the filmmakers make it so it was like Marty on the left? Because that would have made more sense. Because we don't know exactly. This is all stuff that can be,
explained because I think instead of getting hit by the Rolls Royce and getting T-boned, he wasn't going to be leading. He was going to be behind, trailing off a little bit, especially how it played out. Like I watched it, and where the Rolls Royce was, I was like, "Oh, he would have T-boned that Rolls Royce."
All right, so he would have hit the Rolls Royce when
he hits. Yeah, because how they mention it is he totals both cars.
Yeah, so
but it's his fault because he runs into it.
Okay,
which is weird because technically, the Rolls Royce would not have the right of way.
Well, the Rolls Royce just seemed like it made a mistake because that's how it showed it. Like it just comes out of nowhere.
Exactly.
But anyway, just like what is their lives? They have these 2 kids. They wait however the oldest one is, they wait like 8 or 9 years before the Doc waits that long just to like go say hi to Marty. For him, he's endless time. Like he could have gone on the train and went back. And it's like, how old is Doc at this point? we know that, what's very important going back to the second film is when he's in the future and he kind of does like he kind of like he says he added like 20 to 30 years in his life. That's super important talking about the end of Back to the Future because I never really caught that when I was a kid. I'm like, how is old man Doc Brown have kids? And it doesn't make any sense to me. But I think after that little point in Back to the Future 2, like if you catch that, it makes more sense. But
I'm wondering, that was such a throwaway line too. I'm wondering if they added that in a reshoot so it made more sense for the finale.
It might have, because it is just in that scene. It is just a one shot of him. To be fair, in the Back to the Future 2 scene of him pulling it off, you don't see like a far shot of him and Marty. So that could be right. That could be actually that's interesting. I like that. And then, like I said earlier, how it ends, the way Doc's just like, you haven't written, no one's written their history yet. Make it a good one. the end, and I just love the way it ends out. I love how Doc's kind of like changed his like mindset to a certain degree, how he wanted to destroy the, at the beginning of this movie, he wants to just, break the time machine. He thinks it's called nothing but chaos and badness. And by the end of this one, he's just like, he's time traveling all over the place, it seems like. And he's just like, make the future where you want it, because nothing's been written for you yet. So yeah, pretty awesome stuff. I love this trilogy.
I've got a query for you.
Sure.
We finally get back to the Jennifer of the situation. And he goes and he wakes her up, first off, in the cowboy attire. Smooth.
Yeah, I know.
Very smooth.
Yes.
He
wasn't going to go home and get dressed first.
Yeah, well, I'm saying like that's a genuine smoothness thing. Like in the 80s, you could get away with wearing those things because it was kind of like a old school thing for certain people.
Yeah.
I know for a fact my dad was wearing cowboy boots, jeans, and vests. Lots of vests.
Yeah.
So he goes and they get Jennifer, and then she's like, "Oh, it was a dream." And this entire time she's playing it like, I don't know if it really was a dream.
Yeah.
But she's talking about it, and Marty. This is why I'm a Doc Brown fan. Marty is not good at playing it cool.
He's not.
He's just like, huh? Yeah. What? Huh? Yeah. That sounds weird.
Yeah. He's
and
like,
then,
oh,
and then
we'll live here.
Yeah. And then it erased, and she's like, oh, it erased.
Yep.
And then I'm like, oh, good. She's not it. Like, I was just happy they didn't write her to be a total idiot.
Yeah.
And then they go look at the thing, and she's like, oh my God. And then they're blown back. And
yeah. But see,
that was a nice wrap up.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And like, they obviously completely wrote out Jennifer for the last two films. She's barely in this one at all. At the very, very end.
Yeah.
And she's just kind of shoehorned in the beginning. Like I said, that Zemeckis and Spielberg would have never wanted her in the car at the end of the first one if they knew they were gonna write this story for the next two. But they played it pretty smoothly, I'd say, and she's not in this one at all. So yeah. Anyway, the steam train is awesome. I agree. It's pretty cool, and it's a cool way of ending it. And this new vehicle that we're never gonna like see again, unless maybe in like.
I don't want to ever see. I wouldn't mind a follow up from Jules and Verne.
I would mind.
That would be the only thing I want. Is like we're Jules and Verne.
If it's always a comedy.
Oh,
if it's just a comedy,
baby, an action comedy, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
Written by Phil Lord and Chris Miller.
Yeah. So why don't we do it? Let's get into our overall thoughts. If we're done kind of talking about Back to the Future 3, I would say let's go about the trilogy, and then let's discuss like our rankings for it, how we think the trilogy is as a whole. So as a trilogy, like I said, and like we both kind of said before.
Do you want to use your guidelines from ranking the trilogy?
We'll do that.
Well, I meant for the whole trilogy, the first three especially.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of some ideas I came up with on how we're going to rank these, both the trilogies and the individual movies within that trilogy, is obviously the plot, the general quality of the film. Is it a good film? It's a general quality. Where it's just like, is it a good movie? Do we enjoy it? Is it like, does it catch our eye? Is the plot move in a certain way? It's not boring, general movie things, if you like a movie or not. And then rewatchability, which is a big thing with trilogies, because if you're, when a trilogy comes out, that's a lot to ask someone to rewatch, it's like 9 hours or not 9 hours, but like let's say like 8 hours of movie to watch. And that's a lot for someone to sit down to. And then also how well it holds up. This is
not the Lord of the Rings trilogy, bro. This is easily 6 hours.
Yeah.
Including credits.
Yeah, you're right. Like 6. Yeah, you're right. Exactly.
This is the only one that I think fits in that realm too.
Dark Knight will not. Yeah, that'll be a little longer to get through. My notes will be probably a little longer.
I got to schedule those in my weeks.
Yeah. So, and then how well it holds up, and that's a big one, obviously, for this film or these movies because they're from the 80s and it's 1990 as well. So, yeah, I would say in general, the plot is great. A to B, like from the beginning of part 1 to the end of part 3. It has a really, really good story that all ties together. We're going to find in other trilogies, I think, that it'll be a little more disjointed for sure. This is like one of the only trilogies that is like very, very streamlined for the whole thing. I mean, it only takes place within like a couple weeks, you know, the whole trilogy, which is awesome. And I mean, imagine like Marty finally getting back to his bedroom after he left that in the middle of the night in the first film, and he finally gets back to his bedroom like, oh, this is my, like, wow, like what a journey I just went on, you know? It's because
I wouldn't mind seeing a fan film of Marty being like having PTSD because of all this crap. Like, let's be real. Let's be real. He would turn a little bit into Morty a little bit with PTSD at random times. So
I agree. I mean, 88 miles an hour. Oh no. Like, I mean, it's just one of those things where he experienced it all in very fast time, and he took it all with stride because he's Marty, and it almost like helped that he wasn't like, I don't know, they play him as he's kind of dumb to a certain degree. Rewatchability.
I like that actually. There's a like there's a word that they have in there and he couldn't it was a simple word and he read it wrong a couple times. So Doc ended up correcting him. I don't know if that was planned, that was in the script. That was like a little note that I was like, oh wow, okay, like they're making it's not so much Marty's dumb, he's just a high school kid.
Yeah.
You know, he's 15, 16.
I haven't, Ryan. I haven't. You have to watch the video for that one. I'm explaining that one. Anyway, the rewatchability. I think it's very rewatchable. Like I said, I cannot speak objectively on this trilogy. I mean, I did in this film just because I like to nitpick things, but honestly, enjoy it. Like when it comes to just enjoying films, I cannot get enough. I've seen them so many times. I watched them over and over as a kid, and anyone that knows me knows that I love to rewatch things. It's like a weird, like, I don't know. It's a thing. It's
not
me.
Weird, bro. Same.
Yeah, we're the
that's
same.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, because I rewatch things like crazy, and it's bad because I am not good at watching new things sometimes because I just want to rewatch stuff that I already love and know.
Also same.
Exactly. So how well it holds up, like you said earlier, excellently. It looks good. The CGI is never like cringeworthy for the most part. Like, you know what I mean? They don't go out far and away and do these crazy computer graphics. They do a lot of practical effects. It all looks cool. It looks real, like him going to the future, them, you know, blasting in the past. And
the only one that's kind of weird is the train at the end for its final scene.
Yes.
And it's like, who cares?
And even when Biff drops his hoverboard in the future, that looks bad. But that's a nitpick. Yeah. Griff. Yeah.
Okay. That's why I was confused.
Yes. Sorry. So yeah. So what about you, Thomas? What do you think about the trilogy as a whole?
You know, I honestly think this. I'm going to go out on a limb here. It's not a very far limb, or maybe maybe it's a really far limb. I don't know. It's very sturdy what I'm about to stand on. There we go. This is going to be the only trilogy that feels like it was written to be a trilogy,
right? A
full-on story that is seamless. And the last okay, this is kind of my favorite thing about this. The final scene from the previous movie is always the opening scene of the next.
Yeah, exactly.
And
that's what I'm saying. It's seamless.
It goes one. Wow.
Yeah.
You know, especially for, you know, when it comes to part 2, they had to do that because they had to redo Jennifer.
What's funny, is they have to redo it in that film, but in the next two,
For the third one, they added it in there so that 8 months later, it's like, boom, this is what happened.
You're back into it.
You were literally right back into it, and the stakes are there. And it works out because you're like, oh, okay, like, why are we watching this part of it? And, you know, especially you don't think back to the first movie. Oh, it tied in. They played the final scene from the first movie.
Yeah.
You don't expect it to do that. You don't expect that to be a trope.
Nope.
But it works out.
Yeah.
And not only that, but it slowly brings you into the movie. And then you're like, oh my God. And it's like, oh, that's right. They're going to have to get to 1885. And then instantly you're like, how are they going to get to 1885? Like, real deal. How are they going to do this?
And I would say nowadays they would have started the third one, like when they're back in Doc's house. You know what I mean? I feel like the trope of them like starting with the same exact scene isn't something you see much today, and that adds to like the magic of the films, in my opinion.
You want to know the only film I can think of that does this whole replaying the scene thing?
Mm-hmm.
Get your angry pants on. Last Jedi.
Oh, at the very
with
end.
Rey.
Yep.
With how they bring that very same scene in. You know, it starts different, so you're like, oh, okay. Get your angry pants ready. But then it's like, by the way, where's Rey? And then we watch her go through the landing, walking up,
right,
doing that, and then you're right back into the finest. Oh, okay.
That's a good point.
That is legitimately the only film I can think of in not just in recent memory, but even going back to the Future and all the other Star Wars. It's the only one that I think has that connectivity to the previous one.
It's not a common thing to do, really. And I'd say swinging into kind of our next like ending part of this is just like ranking each one. I don't know if Ryan's asking. He's asking, could Back to the Future stand alone as one film and not a trilogy? I don't know if he's asking about if you put them all together or if he means just the original Back to the Future Part 1. But I will say, you know, talking about our like kind of how we're gonna rank these, what I said, the plot, the rewatchability, how it holds up, and how well it fits into the trilogy. That's a big part for the individual you know, episodes, or like how we'll call it, like, you know, movies. And my ranking, it's very simple. It's 1, 2, and 3. That's how it goes. And it's you know, I think that's a lot of people's rankings, but here's why. The first one to me, kind of, if Ryan was asking this, he was talking about just the first one. I'm not sure if that's what he was saying, but if he was just talking about the first movie, the Back to the Future 1, you can go back and listen to our 2 episodes ago where we spoke about it. To me, it's might be my favorite movie of all time. Every scene has a purpose. It leads to the next. It leads to an hour later. It's like the story is great. The characters are awesome. The writing is just like the lines go like this. You have to pay attention. It's not a movie you can really casually watch. I think the third one you could more casually watch for sure. You even like you did, like you said earlier, like you missed some things, but you still got the whole. You still understood.
Yeah, man. I was on a time crunch. I had a long day.
But that's a good one to pick. Like if you're gonna do it, the first one I would not suggest that because it's like everything works. I think honestly, the loss of Crispin Glover as George is a big factor in my mind. And in the next 2 films, they rely much more on Marty, Biff, Griff, Mad Dog, and Doc. Like those are the main 3 for the most part, and they rely too much on them to overcome the first. I'm not saying they're bad because of that. I'm just saying to be better than the first one, in my mind, it's impossible to do. Obviously, I think we'll get to your list, but to me, it's obvious the first one's the best. Like the story is just amazing. The other 2 just kind of build off it and rehash it, but it's just the best, man. I don't know what else to say. You can go back to the 2 episodes ago. So yeah, and then the second one is so to me, this is how I would like frame it in your head, like just to understand. I would say that for me, like if we're doing like a tier list, like part 1 is tier 1, and part 2 and 3 are 2B or 2A and 2B. So like to me, the first one's on a different pedestal than the next 2, but the next 2 are closer in some days I like the second one more, some days the third one more. I think because the second one's more unique. I like the alternate. 2015's fun, but it's honestly a little slow when you rewatch it. Like you're kind of just entertained because it's like this 2015 that they just dreamed up. So that's just naturally entertaining. But really once that movie kicks off, gets to 1985 where it's all biffed up, goes back to 1955. That movie is rolling, and I love it. I think it's like it feels, which is silly because it literally is 1955, but they remade a little bit of the magic from the first film. The third one, I also really enjoy. Like I said, the third act is great. I like seeing Doc as the main character, even though I did have my qualms with like the Doc Clara thing a little bit. I'm just not like a huge fan. I still enjoy it. I still like the idea of Doc being the main character and Doc having a love interest to a certain degree. But yeah, just the first one's the best. That's my ranking. The second and third kind of move, but even just when I was a kid, I always looked forward to watching the first two more than the third. I think it's just because I like the idea of doing like future more than the past, just as like a human being. I think that's just more fascinating to me. But the third one's still very good. I still really enjoy it. But the first one to me, it's like just the characters are just better. There's more of them. You see like Lorraine, George, 1955 Doc. It's the best, man. If the first one's not your number one, I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, get ready to fight, bro.
Come on.
What's your area code?
I don't even know yet.
No. For your phone. Your current
321.
It's my ranking.
You're lying.
I'm serious. So last week,
there's no way the first one is your least favorite. There is no way.
Oh, I have my reasons. I will run through my reasons. So this is 3, 2, 1. Now you're saying the best. You're looking at it analytically. I'm looking at it both analytically and how it makes me feel. Because that's what
I'm looking at both those ways too. Well, then we feel differently about the movies then. They make us feel different things, I think, is what it comes down to. So for me, hot take is right from Ryan.
So number 3, and the reason that it is my favorite is the Easter eggs it brings on, the fact that Doc is the main character and Marty is no longer. Marty's actually there to save the day. Yeah, like he's there to save the day in the other two, but this one he's crucial. This was his mission to go back in time to save Doc Brown. Right. Which is another thing that I like. They took what he learned in the first two and now he's the hero and it's Doc's story and Doc's the one who's got to be kind of saved a little bit. Yeah. And then they take elements of the first two and they spin them on their head a little bit. And, like I said, when they brought out the manure cart and he got punched and fell into it. Yeah. That was like a great subtle thing that they did. And there's a lot of little subtleties that paid homage to them. This is the end game of this trilogy.
There is no way the third is the best one. There is just no way.
On. Let me finish this. This is the end game of this trilogy because it has to wrap it up. And not only does it wrap it wraps it up by giving you the stuff you love from the others. And it makes you care about the characters more.
This is one of the hottest takes I've heard since Friday.
So that's why I like 3 the most.
Crazy. And you don't even like the first one second most.
I don't.
That's what's more unbelievable. I kind of thought you might say 3 is 1, but I was debating the future is the worst one.
To me, see, I almost switched 1 and 2, but
you wanted to do the 3, 2, 1 gag.
Well, A, yes, but B, when it comes down to it, I can go throw on. To me, the number 2 is the least one that fits well in the trilogy, in my opinion.
Second one.
Sorry. The second one is reliable on the other parts of the trilogy.
Yeah. Speaking of our rankings,
is what I meant.
How it fits in a trilogy. Yeah. I would agree. The second one relies the most on
that is almost what like that is like my biggest knock on it. And last week I was like, oh, I love this. I'm going to probably pick 2 better than 1 and we'll see where 3 falls. And at the end of it, I have to stick with that because I love the future bit and the Easter eggs that we got from that. I also absolutely love the ending of part 2.
Oh, I agree.
Because I remember when I first saw it, I don't think we actually had the third movie. I think we got them from Blockbuster. We never owned them. So we were watching it in from Blockbuster and we got 1 and 2. And so I was like, wait, what? Well, I got to watch the third one. And they're like, well, you got to wait till we go back to Blockbuster. I was like, this is bullshit. Didn't say that. I would have been shot. But I was upset because I was like, well, now I got to wait. So part 2, the ending is phenomenal. I love the stuff they do in the future. And I love the homages that they do from the first. This is the biggest reason why number 1 is at the bottom for me. the Lorraine and Marty stuff.
Okay.
Makes me feel so gross that I'm like, I gotta knock. Like, that is a bigger knock than
Interesting.
it. And going back to Ryan's point, I also think number 1 stands on its own more.
It does.
Which is both a great thing, but also it doesn't fit in the ending fits it into the trilogy. But
I mean,
as you can see by the end of number 3, they were planning to just be like, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And that's why they didn't, when it came to Doc, make like a tree and get off this stream. Just the Lorraine thing really knocked it down to the bottom for me. That was super gross. And I now remember as a kid watching that and going, and as an adult, I'm like, it's worse. It's so much worse.
It is worse as an adult. I agree. And that is like the weirdest part of it, but I don't know. There's no way I would ever say the first one's not the best. And to me, it is, because it sets everything I mean, I get what you're saying, where the first one
about the best, it's the one I prefer. It's my ranking of them.
Okay. Because I understand that. Fair.
When it comes down to best, I'm going to have to watch all 3 in a row, and then I'll have a better answer for you. But
the first one's the best. It is the best. It sets everything up. The way they do that film, where every scene leads to the next, they set up things at the beginning, and the way we talked about how the conflicts start in an order and they unravel in the opposite order, like of the different problems. I just think it's a beautiful movie. They introduce all these fun things that we enjoy in the later films, and to me, it's like they're just kind of trying. Yeah, Ryan. Maybe not JK after this.
Ryan Permerson said, "David, I'll be your new co-host." LOL, JK.
But I'll never go off that train. But I do agree with what you're saying. I think what it is, you saying how it's just for your personal list, the Lorraine stuff, it's super weird, but it also just makes Back to the Future what it is. That weird zany, like it's gross.
The Luke and Leia kiss thing.
Yeah, but it's way worse than that.
This is so much worse, which is why it's like, that's a big.
Yeah,
Empire is still. I'm not even gonna lie to anybody here. This is a spoiler alert for when Star Wars is ever popped up, but Empire is my favorite of that trilogy.
Same.
It is astronomically, but on a whole different level. It's on tier 9. It's on cloud 9.
Wow.
I went there. So they had like that one kiss and you're like, oh, okay. And then you find out in the next movie, it's like, oh, that's kind of gross.
Yeah. But in this one, it's like thrown in your face. You know everything going in
the whole time. Yeah. And
it's weird, but it's also just makes it like, it's funny too, I think.
Also, I guess I'm just a fan of the Old West.
Yeah.
And I cannot stand watching most Western films.
Right.
I don't know what it is. It might be the pacing, but this one has an action adventure pacing versus a Western genre film pacing.
Sure. I mean, it's a Back to the Future film.
And I love the rustic look as well. That is also probably why number 3 is up there, because like I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I just want to live out in the West and be able to live in those rustic colors, because it is aesthetically pleasing to my eye for some reason.
Yeah, I will say, I think the biggest difference between me and you, how we went, opposite order, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3 for me, is I think I enjoy the base and you enjoy more of everything that came off of the original movie. Like you enjoy like the next thing happening. You enjoy the other.
I enjoy the extra dimensions.
Yeah, and the different routes they go in. Like you enjoy how Doc's different than the main character. And to me, it's just, I think, Back to the Future set up for the other two. All the other two to me is almost like icing on top of the cake, because I mean, great icing. Like I said, it's one of my favorite trilogies, probably my favorite trilogy. I mean, keep coming back to Trilogy of Trilogies to find out how we rank the others. But
yeah,
I mean,
we should do like an ultimate trilogy ranking at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll get there. We'll get there eventually.
We got time, everybody.
Let's go 10 trilogies and figure it out from there.
Yes, but
30 weeks. Holy crap, bro.
That would be crazy.
Wild.
Anyway, I will say I think that the first is the best, just because it lays the foundation for the next two. In the way it's like going off of how it fits in a trilogy, it lays the foundation better than most movies as well. I think most movies will
concur.
probably find that other trilogies don't lay the foundation as well as this one, and they weren't even necessarily trying to. But the fun of it, the humor, the characters, they had so much greatness to build off of. It was almost hard for them to fail in the next two, in my opinion, because they got so much great performances, and the characters, like, it's fantastic that they ended up, going back and filming with Michael J. Fox, because the film probably wouldn't have worked because everything worked so seamlessly. That's why you can't touch the trilogy, because I can't imagine them ever being able to recreate that magic they had in the original, and then obviously in the following two.
Yes. Dang, I had a really good thought based off something you were saying, and then I lost it. What was it? About the first one and how they laid the groundwork. And I think you said that they weren't planning it to be a trilogy. I think what makes it such a great trilogy is they used the first one. They made the first one, and they already had their logic for the series in the first one. Laid out well enough to where they're like, well, if we just continue with the logic of our universe, and as long as whatever we decide to do sticks to that logic, it'll be okay. That's what makes this trilogy so good. And it's less about the first movie and more about how they executed the second and the third that makes the trilogy as great as it is. Yeah. Like the Godfather trilogy, number 1, everyone loves it. Number 2, most people love that one more. And then number 3, everyone universally pans it.
Yeah.
And I've seen, I watched them all when I was like 17 or 18. And I agree, the third one's not the best, but it does do well with the trilogy, but it is still very disjointed in a much larger way than this is.
Yeah.
And they do stuff in that trilogy because it is based on real world stuff that doesn't make sense, but the real world really does not make sense. So it kind of continues on that path of living in the mobster life.
Right.
Star Wars, I mean, come on, guys. It is one story, 1 or 2 year, maybe 3 year gap, another story, 1 year gap, fourth story.
Yeah. And I
every other trilogy. Well, say that again.
I enjoy that about Star Wars, how it's split up like that. And I miss that in from Force Awakens to The Last Jedi. How there wasn't a gap there.
Yes. And I kind of enjoyed that there wasn't the gap there, but
very Back to the Future, like as you pointed out earlier.
Exactly. And that's probably why, that's probably why I liked it. And I didn't realize that was part of it.
To me, it felt weird because I'm used to Star Wars taking those gaps. And I enjoy that. And I think, we'll get there at some point. Maybe we'll get to the sequel trilogy at some point.
No, we won't. Don't even act like you're going to vote for that to be on our trilogy.
I don't vote. I let the fans vote. They decide our fate.
Come on. We choose which ones to bump up.
This is true. But I would totally let that go up. I mean, I'd love to. I'd love to get probably the other two first, though, for Star Wars wise, the OG and the prequels, because I think that would just be, well, I mean, the sequels are so much more fresh in our heads, and the other ones I think would be kind of more fun to dive back into and go for. Anyway, guys, that does it. Back to the Future, great trilogy, as we decided. We started off with a banger, the first trilogy of trilogies.
We started off with, and I'm going to stand by this, I think it's going to be the best trilogy, most cohesive trilogy out of all of them that we watch.
I agree. I mean, we've from the very beginning, everyone who watches this, Thomas, obviously, I'm a huge Back to the Future fan. So this is a great way to start off for me, and the only way to start off for me, honestly. I mean, it is just the best. I hope you guys keep enjoying watching. Please. So now we've finished this trilogy. Like my order was 1, 2, 3 in order of Back to the Future. Thomas's was 3, 2, 1. We think it's the best. Later on, we'll rank more trilogy against trilogy. We'll get to that at some point. Please vote. We have our voting opening. Vote opening for the next trilogy. After that, next week we will be watching Batman Begins. Whenever our show is next week, be ready for a Batman Begins conversation. And as we start the Dark Knight trilogy, be sure to vote on Toy Story v Toy Story v Indiana Jones. Here we go. Here's the image. Toy Story v Indiana Jones this week. Please go vote for that to see who will move on to the next round, and so on and so forth. Thomas, any closing thoughts?
No, none. Honestly, I'm super excited. I'm very excited for our next. I would oh my God, I can't even speak. Out of these four, this is probably my favorite incarnation of Tournament of Trilogies we might even have. This is stacked, baby.
All winners.
All winners. 100% all winners. And I'm secretly pulling for Jurassic Park because I want an excuse. I need an excuse to go watch it, because if I watch it before we have to for the show, I'm gonna put it off a little more later on, and I'd rather go into it more fresh because I've not seen a lot of these trilogies in a long time.
Yeah, same. For sure.
So please vote. And the bollocks, I had a thought.
Thomas, where can everyone find you?
Yes, no, it was before that. Oh yes, this week I don't remember if I said this. This week it's Toy Story, Indiana Jones. Next week, Jurassic Park and Star Wars. The week after, which will be the final week of
this round of voting. So for whatever, like, that'll be.
Hold on, I got to think. Batman Begins will announce the winner. Okay, so when we are on the Dark Knight, we will be revealing the winner of this version of Tournament. I'm sorry, wrong. I am terrible at this. When we are on the Dark Knight Rises, we will announce the winner. See, this is why I draw. This is why I'm the picture guy, because I'm so visual that I have to be like week 1, week 2, week 3. David, where can everyone find you? Late
David
night shows
Thompson on Facebook, David J. Thompson, TikTok, Instagram, David Thompson on Twitter, 2 A's in the David Thomas. What about you?
You can find me at Thomas Carter Rochester -actor on Facebook, at Thomas Carter Rochester, all one word, no hyphens, no spaces on Instagram, at Thor Son of Dale on TikTok, at TC Rochester Act, that is TC Rochester ACT on the Twitters. You can also find all of my acting stuff, as well as Thor Watches the Mandalorian and Thor Talks 2 on Life of Thor over on YouTube. That is going to be getting a rebranding in the next couple months. I'm working towards using it for skits and short films and the such. Also, you can find us right here at the Lights Thunder Action Facebook page. You can also find us right here at the HWWS WebTV YouTube channel, and then, of course, we are on Twitter at LTA Podcasting. David, what do you have to promote for the week?
Yeah, guys. So I'm actually skipped this week of my other podcast, Double Down Debates, which you can find on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It is my sports talk debate show. Well, more of just a podcast. The debating obviously does happen, hence the name. But you can check that out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'm sure to have a new episode up next week. Go check that out there. It's just an audio podcast, unlike this one. So just Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Thomas, what about you?
Tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Ryan Permison and I and other people of whom I'm actually not 100% sure who's going to be on it. I just found out today that I'm actually free. We are going to be doing a watch along of the 20th anniversary of X-Men.
Cool.
I believe it released later on. I think it was the 14th, but we're free on the 12th. So we're going to do a watch along of that for the 20th anniversary. Come join us. Get your movie ready. I just realized I don't even own that movie. I got to figure out how I'm going to watch it. I don't think it's on Disney Plus yet.
Oh, it might be on Disney Plus yet. It might be. I think they might have just added it. I don't know.
I know Days of Futures Past is there. Willow will be there. Willow Skyler will be there. So it would be Ryan, Willow, I, and more people. I believe that will be on the Nerd Culture Facebook page, Ryan, ? And also the YouTube page, live streaming, ? Like I said, man, it has been a long day. My life is a question mark.
Yeah. Just go follow Thomas and Ryan on Facebook, and you'll be able to find it there.
Yes, indeedio, good sir. That wraps this episode up. Of Ryan just popped in. He said also, oh my gosh, come on, Travis and Greg will be on there as well. And yes, it is on the Nerd Culture page. So join the Nerd Culture, subscribe, like, all of that stuff.
Yes.
And
go watch them tomorrow night.
yes, that wraps up the 15th episode of Lights, Thunder, Action. Thank you for joining us. Join us next week for Batman Begins.
Yes. Can't wait. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It was a great show. Thank you all. Go vote.